It begins with a sudden flash across the Caribbean sky. A low rumble builds into a roar, a sound that any seasoned naval crewman knows instantly. Fighter jets, sleek, sharp, and unmistakably aggressive, their engines tearing through the humid air. But these are not American aircraft. They are Venezuelan F-16s, flying dangerously low and much too close to a United States Navy vessel cruising international waters. For the sailors watching from the deck, it is a tense and surreal moment, the kind that feels scripted for a Cold War thriller, except this is happening now. The United States Navy has long patrolled these waters, projecting presence, deterrence, and security. But here, off the Venezuelan coast, those very principles are suddenly being tested by a nation struggling with internal collapse, yet still armed with American-made war machines from a different era. These F-16s were once symbols of strength and alliance. Back in the late 1980s, Venezuela was one of the few Latin American countries trusted enough by Washington to receive advanced U.S. fighter jets. But decades later, the political winds shifted. Caracas turned hostile, and the very aircraft once supplied by the Pentagon now find themselves screaming over U.S. ships as instruments of intimidation. What begins as a routine patrol transforms into a dangerous game of brinkmanship. On the bridge of the U.S. Navy ship, alarms echo, radar screens glow, and officers call out headings and altitudes. The jets are closing in, cutting across invisible boundaries, their wings banking so low that even the markings on their fuselage can be seen through binoculars. It is not just a flyby, it is a deliberate maneuver, a message, a warning, and perhaps a miscalculation. But before we get to the heart-pounding climax of this encounter, we must step back and ask, why is Venezuela, a country crippled by hyperinflation, corruption, and mass exodus, still fielding advanced fighter jets capable of challenging the most powerful navy in the world? The answer lies in a forgotten history of geopolitics, Cold War deals, oil wealth, and a government desperate to prove it still holds power in the skies. Venezuela's F-16 fleet is not just hardware, it is legacy. In the 1980s, flush with petrodollars, Venezuela sought prestige and security. It became the first country in Latin America to acquire the F-16 Fighting Falcon, a symbol of cutting-edge American engineering. 24 aircraft were delivered, sleek and lethal, capable of supersonic speed, precision strikes, and air superiority. For years, they were the pride of the Venezuelan Air Force, a deterrent not just against regional rivals, but a statement of alignment with Washington's influence in the hemisphere. Yet as the decades rolled on, Venezuela descended into political chaos. The rise of Hugo Chavez in the late 1990s brought an anti-American pivot. Military ties with the United States frayed. Parts, upgrades, and maintenance contracts were severed. Pilots were trained under a new doctrine, one fueled by revolutionary rhetoric. And the once proud F-16s became relics of a fractured alliance, slowly cannibalized for spare parts, barely kept in the air, yet still useful as symbols of defiance. So when they roar over a U.S. Navy ship in the Caribbean, their significance is not lost on anyone watching. It is not just a tactical maneuver, it is a political theater. For the U.S. sailors, the sight is unnerving. The rules of engagement are strict. They cannot fire unless threatened directly. Yet what constitutes a threat in such moments is a matter of interpretation. A pilot diving too close, a missile lock-on, a sudden radar ping. Any misstep could transform posturing into catastrophe. Tension ripples through the crew. Some grip their stations tighter, others glance nervously skyward. On the surface, it seems like just another overflight, but in military terms, every second matters. Distance shrinks quickly at supersonic speed. One wrong move, and an international incident is born. Meanwhile, inside the cockpits of those Venezuelan jets, the pilots have their own perspective. Trained to harass, to probe, to demonstrate, they know they are under the watchful eyes of radar, cameras, and satellites. Every angle, every pass is recorded. They are flying not just for their commanders, but for propaganda, for headlines, for a government eager to show it can stand up to Washington's might. But deep down, perhaps they also know the danger. To fly so close to an American warship is to tempt fate, and fate, when mixed with politics and military power, is merciless. As the F-16s bank sharply and make another pass, the tension tightens. The ship's crew brace for what might come next. Because history has shown again and again that these encounters rarely end quietly. And this one is about to spiral into something no one on deck or in the sky will ever forget. The Caribbean sun burns overhead, glinting off the steel hull of the American ship as the Venezuelan F-16s tighten their formation. The scene feels surreal, like a confrontation pulled from a different timeline, a Cold War movie transplanted into the 21st century. Sailors on deck shield their eyes, tracking the jets as they cut through the sky with deliberate arrogance. The commander watches silently, every nerve alert, knowing one hasty order could alter the course of history. The rules of engagement are clear. The ship has the right to defend itself. But defense is a thin line. Do you wait until a missile is fired, or do you respond to a provocative dive? Do you risk escalation by locking your own fire control radar onto them? Every choice carries weight, and every second ticks louder. This is not the first time Venezuelan aircraft have challenged U.S. operations in the region. For years, Caracas has sought to assert its claim over surrounding waters, some of which overlap with oil-rich zones contested by neighbors. The Venezuelan government, under Nicolas Maduro, is desperate for symbols of strength as its economy collapses. Shortages, inflation, and international sanctions cripple the nation, but military theatrics provide a stage for defiance. A flyby may seem small, but in propaganda, it becomes massive. The state-controlled media will frame it as a moment of sovereignty, a warning to Washington, a reminder that Venezuela is not cowed. Yet behind the bravado lies an uncomfortable truth. Many of Venezuela's F-16s are barely airworthy. Years without proper American support have forced crews to improvise, using salvaged parts, local modifications, even help from other nations willing to bypass embargoes. These jets are ghosts of their former selves, still deadly, but operating on the edge of functionality. Every mission they fly is as much a gamble as a demonstration. And yet, as they roar past the U.S. Navy ship, no one doubts their threat. Because even an old fighter, armed with a single missile, can trigger disaster. For the Americans aboard, this is not just about Venezuela. They know the world is watching. Russia, China, Iran, all eyes are fixed on how the United States handles provocations in its own hemisphere. Any hesitation may be seen as weakness. Any overreaction as recklessness. It is a razor's edge. On radar screens inside the ship's Combat Information Center, the F-16s appear as blips moving fast, crossing and circling, dipping into zones that brush too close to the ship's defensive perimeter. The crew monitor frequencies, listening for electronic signals, checking for radar locks. For now, there is no missile tone. But the margin is shrinking. The commander radios back to headquarters, reporting the incident. But decisions in these moments are often made before a reply can even arrive. Meanwhile, in Caracas, the government calculates the benefits. State television already prepares scripts, ready to broadcast footage that will show Venezuelan jets outmaneuvering American warships. The regime thrives on moments like these, where it can present itself as a David defying Goliath. For Maduro, the flyby is not just about defense. It is about survival. His power rests on maintaining the illusion of strength. The people may queue for food, the currency may collapse, but as long as the military is seen standing tall, the regime endures. And so, Venezuelan pilots are ordered to dance with danger. But danger has no loyalty. In military encounters, accidents breed wars. A jet that flies too close and loses control. A nervous gunner who mistakes a dive for an attack. A radar misreading that flashes red on the wrong screen. These are the sparks that ignite firestorms. History is filled with near misses that almost turned into global catastrophes. The Cuban Missile Crisis, the Black Sea bumping of U.S. and Soviet ships, the countless Cold War interceptions where pilots stared into each other's eyes through cockpit glass. This confrontation is part of that lineage, and the stakes are no less deadly. As the jets complete another pass, they tilt their wings aggressively, a gesture both taunting and theatrical. Some sailors curse under their breath. Others tighten their grips on their rifles. The air hums with pressure. At that instant, the ship's electronic warfare officer picks up something new. A faint signal, a radar ping that doesn't belong. One of the F-16s has activated targeting radar. It might be brief, it might be unintentional, but to the Americans, it is an escalation. Inside the command center, voices rise. The commander must decide, respond in kind, lock on with defensive systems, or hold steady and risk further provocation. Every eye turns toward him. He knows this decision could ripple across oceans, across governments, across history. The Venezuelan pilots, circling once more, cannot know exactly what the Americans will do. They are told to press, to intimidate, but not to fire. Their orders stop just short of war, but in the cockpit, adrenaline clouds judgment. To fly so close to the world's most powerful navy is both thrilling and terrifying. They are patriots, but also pawns. And as they bank once more toward the ship, the moment teeters on the edge. A single wrong signal, a single misread intention could plunge these waters into chaos. The roar of the engines grows louder as the Venezuelan F-16s sweep in again, cutting a path just above the churning wake of the U.S. Navy ship. The tension on deck is suffocating. Each sailor knows the margin for error is gone. A lock-on has been detected, faint but unmistakable, and in naval doctrine that is no longer a game. That is a hostile act. Defensive systems are primed. The ship's close-in weapon system, a rotating cannon designed to shred incoming threats, begins to hum as it spins up. Its sensors track the aircraft automatically. One wrong move, and the sky could erupt in fire. The commander hesitates, eyes locked on the radar screens, the weight of history pressing against his chest. His training screams to act, to protect his crew, but his judgment whispers caution. Because if he fires, the United States and Venezuela are no longer just adversaries. They are at war. The Venezuelan jets slice through the air, their pilots maintaining bravado. Yet inside the cockpits, their hands sweat against throttles and sticks. They know the range of American weapons. They know how easily their lives could be erased with the push of a button. And yet, orders are orders. Their government demands a show of strength. They press closer. For a heartbeat, it feels inevitable. A flashpoint, an explosion, a disaster that will dominate headlines around the world. But then, as suddenly as they arrived, the Venezuelan jets pull away. One banking left, the other climbing into the sky, their afterburners glowing faint in the Caribbean haze. The threat recedes. The ship holds its fire. The moment passes. Relief sweeps across the deck like a wave. Shoulders unclench, breaths release, but no one cheers, because everyone knows how close they came to catastrophe. The commander orders the crew to stand down, but vigilance remains. He radios the incident up the chain, fully aware that analysts, diplomats, and generals will now dissect every second of what just happened. For Washington, this confrontation becomes another piece of a larger puzzle. Venezuela's actions are reckless, but they are also calculated. A show for domestic audiences, a warning to the United States, a signal to allies and adversaries alike. And yet, the risks are undeniable. Because mistakes do not care about politics. An accidental collision, a misfired missile, a panicked response, these are the sparks that light wars no one intends to fight. In Caracas, the state television broadcast airs triumphant footage. Grainy clips of Venezuelan jets swooping over the Caribbean, framed with bold captions declaring defiance against imperialist forces. Maduro's government seizes the narrative, presenting the flyby as a victory, proof that the Bolivarian spirit still commands the skies. For ordinary Venezuelans struggling to find food, medicine, and fuel, the spectacle may offer a fleeting distraction. But for those who understand the fragility of the moment, it is terrifying. Because behind the triumphalism lies a reality few admit. Venezuela cannot withstand a direct conflict with the United States. Its air force is aging, its economy shattered, its military resources dwindling. A true war would be catastrophic. Yet in the theater of politics, perception often matters more than reality. For the sailors aboard the American ship, the memory of the encounter lingers long after the jets have vanished. They return to their routines, but the adrenaline remains. Each knows that they stood at the edge of something irreversible. Each knows that next time, the outcome may be different. Military historians will file this incident alongside dozens of others, close calls where men and machines danced on the edge of war. They will note how restraint prevailed, how decisions made in seconds prevented disaster. But they will also warn how fragile that balance is. Because every time fighters buzz warships, every time commands push their pilots to provoke, the odds tilt closer toward accident, misinterpretation, and escalation. In the broader arc of geopolitics, the incident becomes a symbol. A crumbling regime flexing old American muscle, flying U.S.-built jets against their former allies. A reminder that weapons outlast alliances, that technology sold in one era can return in another as a threat, and a testament to how quickly small nations, seeking to prove relevance, can entangle themselves in great power struggles. As the sun sets over the Caribbean, the U.S. ship continues its patrol. Its mission is unchanged: presence, deterrence, vigilance. Yet now, each sailor feels the weight of what it means. To sail here is not just to project power, but to balance on the edge of war, where even the roar of distant engines can set hearts racing and fingers twitching near triggers. The Venezuelan F-16s return to base, their mission complete, their government satisfied with the images of defiance. But the pilots know better. They know how close they came to never landing again. They know the American firepower that shadowed them in silence, weapons that stayed quiet only because of restraint, not weakness. And they know, deep down, that one day restraint may fail. For the world beyond, the lesson is clear. Encounters like these are not isolated. They are reminders of how fragile peace can be, how easily theater turns into tragedy. Venezuela may see victory in a flyby, but history sees a warning. Because when fighter jets fly too close to warships, they play with forces far greater than politics. They gamble with the very thin line between peace and disaster, and in that gamble, one mistake is all it takes.